Good afternoon, students. Today we will discuss about Romanticism. Although we have studied earlier about this movement, this is not an act, this is a movement that was started in the late 18th century. The initiation of this period starts was lyrical ballads composed by Wordsworth along with Lord Byron. So we can say 1798 was the initial point of this age. Earlier we have discussed about this age in brief. Today I will discuss into detail about the period. So first of all, let me know what is Romanticism. Romanticism was a counterculture of a movement that reached its peak between 1800 and 1850. The era influenced the broad range of fields, or we can say in each and every field of art, it has a great effect over poetry, over paintings, philosophy, fiction writing, music, etc. These works focused on idealism and man's innate goodness as a shining light in a period of tyranny and revolution. So we can say this was a period of tyranny and revolutions. There were so many revolutions have been taking place in the world. For example, we can say American Revolution, French Revolution, etc. So these works were talking about the man's innate goodness. To know more about the radical era, there are some facts. Without going the facts, let we know some another things of romantic period. Uh, Here I would like to talk about the romantic poetry. Romantic poetry was one branch of the romantic movement. The first, there are two generations of the romantic poets. In the first generation, that was started in 1798 were primarily Coleridge, William Blake and Wordsworth. These are the three poets who belongs to the first generation of the romantic poetry. Now we were talking about the second generation which culminates in 1820s with the poets such as Byron, Shelley and Keats. This movement showed an interest in the Gothic, medieval art, and nature. So there are the three fields: Gothic, medieval art, and nature. The ballad form was reintroduced, and the poem often took their form from fairy tales and folk songs. Took their form from fairy tales and folk songs. Poets were enjoying writing for themselves rather than senior nobility, and later they were the source of inspiration for the pre-Raphaelite painters. So these type of poetry, this type of poetry was written basically for the oneself, not about the senior nobles, not about the kings and queens. That was the very subject of a neoclassical period. Romanticism was a counterculture. Okay, there are some facts about the Romanticism. Romanticism is by nature undefinable. So we can't define Romanticism. It is undefinable, but there are some things. The fuel of the movement is the personal emotion, individual uniqueness, and self expression. And it has been earlier told to you, the poets write about oneself, write about individual uniqueness, about personal emotions. So this is the self-expression. The results vary from person to person. The poet Charles Baudelaire shared. There is a comment about this undefinable nature of Romanticism, and Charles Baudelaire said it does not lie in subject matter or abstract truth, but in a way of feeling. The painters of this era did not have a distinct style either. The message conveyed by their works were what defined them as romantic painters. So painters of this era does not have any distinct style. The message conveyed by their work defined them as the romantic painters. Oh. Wars and bloodshed cast doubt on the so-called age of the region, gave birth to Romanticism. So, what are the situations which creates uh, the situation of taking place this age? Wars and bloodshed cast doubt on the so-called age of reason and gave birth to Romanticism. The term may be misleading as it does not focus on love and romance. So, my dear students, Romanticism is not related as the word shows to romance. Let you know that it is something else. Instead, the era romanticizes humans as arbitrary arbiters of liberty, heroism, and ideals. Romantic works are better defined by the rejection of neoclassical beliefs. It has been told you earlier in the previous lecture. They praised emotion over thought, spiritualism over science, nature over industrialization, rusticity over wealth, freedom over authority. So we can say basic elements of this literature was emotion, spiritualism, nature, and rusticity, freedom. Romantic works yearned for the past. So there was a desire for the past among the poets of the Romantic age. Romanticism originated in Germany, where modernization caused Weltschmerz and world weariness. Many wished to return to bygone eras where life was simple and peaceful. So we can say the romantic poets like simplicity and peacefulness, and they are searching out where they can find peace and simple simplicity. Philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau believed man was born good but made evil by the society, and this was the basic thing that was emphasized during the Romantic period. There is the great effect of Rousseau over the poets of this age. Rousseau says, man born good but made evil by the society, he inspired a Back to Eden campaign. Back to Eden campaign where people can return to nature and be their true selves. And look at this painting, this shows returning back to Eden, Eden Garden, Eden Garden, that has been discussed in detail in Paradise Lost. So people were trying to return to the back ages. They're trying to return to the nature from the industrialization. The respect for nature. They have respect for natural things. Liberty leading the people, 1830 by use, nay declarations. Romanticism gave rise to the schools and other movements. So Romanticism gave rise to other schools, or other movements. The movement created institutions such as Norway, Berbijon, schools of landscapes. John Constable painted with small brush strokes of pure color that happened blended at a distance. This inspired the Impressionists, the leaders of the postmodern art movement. So, the first painting school was created during this period was Impressionists, the leaders of the first modern art movement. In turn, Impressionism influenced many of the succeeding modern movements. So, the first and foremost school that was influenced by Romanticism was Impressionism, and that in succeeding periods impact other modern movements. Romanticism is a glorification of the natural world and the human goodness. So, Romanticism is a glorification of natural world and human goodness. It's a philosophy of warm emotion over cold thought. Make it the art with a heart. So, it, there is a tag that is used for this period, art with a heart. What do you mean art with a heart? And the emotions of the heart has been represented in the artwork of this period, in the paintings, in the poems, in the philosophy, in the fiction, etc. Wordsworth came in contact with the French Revolution while touring Europe. Tribbles and the speech of the common man. He focuses on the tribbles, life and speech of the common man. Here I would like to quote the famous definition of Wordsworth of poetry. Poetry is the overflow of powerful feelings in the language of the common man. These issues proved to be the utmost importance to his work. His most famous work was the Prelude, 1850, and this is autobiographical confectional poem, a series of poems which was written by him. His fame was among the aristocratic intellectual class at a time when only cultivated people read and discussed literature. His fame was among the aristocratic intellectual class at a time when only cultivated people read and classical literature. So this was a period when the common people were not able to read classical literature, people were not read poetry. Uh, he created the Byronic hero. The Byronic hero consisted of the traits. These traits prevailed in Byron's works. Became captivated of Mary Godwin, and they ran away to Europe in 1814. During this period, he came in the contact of the revolutionaries of the French revolutionaries. To learn more about the great and these other facts. Okay, thank you. I have given some references here. If you want to know something else about the Romantic period, you can just touch the link and you can find out more facts about Romanticism. Thank you for listening. We will meet in the next class.